Welcome, everyone, to another NC Book Club session. This is session 8 now, covering Frank Herbert's Dune, this time chapters 34 through 38. And wow, what a set of chapters this week. um, the world building with the Fremen just reaches a whole other level. Their history, that goes way far back than we might have thought before now. Their sacred customs, their dream for Arrakis is fully revealed to Paul and Jessica. There's so much more also political intrigue. That part of it gets grander as the Baron Harkonnen has increasingly tense relationship with the Emperor himself, as that takes place on the Harkonnen homeworld, Getty Prime. Some very exciting sequences there as well. And just this really, what happens with Paul is just so fascinating. It's so profound. It's so that the cage of destiny really it starts to feel like a cage, I think, even more so with this reading. And it's so nice, though, that even in what's happening and what he may not be able to control, seeing the future, seeing its outcomes, there is a calm, there is a quiet within the storm of all of the chaos that's happening around them, all of the violence that will be in store for them between Paul and Chani. They have this, a connection starting to form as well. That's very very wonderfully written and developed. I love that. So yeah, very exciting. So much stuff to talk about. Um, it begins, our reading began with the words, God created Arrakis to train the faithful from the wisdom of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. And we begin with the funeral for Jameis now. So yeah, the previous reading we got to it ended around the duel to the death between Paul and Jameis, who was Fremen warrior who called out Jessica and her so-called part in the myths and legends, and that meant that Paul was going to have to be her champion. And it ended with, actually, Paul didn't want to kill Jameis, but that's their ways. That's how they have lived and survived all this time. So now we're seeing the outcome of that. And Paul chose his Fremen name, and they are now at least Paul is part of the tribe. Jessica still has her test to face now in these chapters. And that's a whole other thing, too. So trippy. And so, I mean, your mind's eye just really goes wild with the imagery that these words invoke in this reading. And yeah, so we begin with the funeral for Jameis and all of the circuit or customs surrounding the funeral specifically. Like nothing was more, or even before now with Jessica, her point of view, with all that she's been through in trying to survive the desert, having to learn how to use the still suit just to preserve tiny bits of moisture to survive. None of that really drove home to her just how sacred water was. Then the funeral for Jameis in this way was having his water rendered down. The flesh belongs to the individual, but the water belongs to the tribe, and seeing how delicate and exacting everything was in the customs surrounding water. And what is it? Paul recites the words of from the OC Bible, from water does all life begin. And they're just things like this that happen with Paul, just everything he does that just garners more of that fascination from the Fremen themselves. So initially, Yeah, the customs were a bit strange to Paul still, even though knowing so much, at least about how they survive. Non Matt, good to see you as always. I really should have prepped some coffee for this evening's club meeting. I'm right there with you, man. The heat actually is getting to me, which is funny, I guess, considering the book we're reading now. Dr. Fakin, I am a friend of Jameis. I love that part so much. Jameis owed me two waters, though. That's great. I like the character of Hera. Yeah, I really liked her conversation with Paul. I love that whole interaction. And again, just seeing as far as the customs of the Fremen, just the everyday things, how they live, that was one of the most fascinating parts of it. Yeah, we see these big, grand world building elements with the Fremen, with Jessica seeing the past memories of the Fremen, Wild Reverend mothers being passed on to her and having that all opened up for her. But through Hera, we get the look of just how everyday life works for them. So we're getting, their family life, their jobs, their work, like uh, their still suit maintenance, their manufacturing processes, and yeah, just family dynamics too. So we get a very intimate look in that. And I really love how that was handled through the conversations with Hera. I really liked, I really like her. And again, with the Hera is the wife of Jameis. So seeing how these ones also how the death of a loved one, how that is handled. And it's also handled in different ways too. Like there's some complexity there, of course, because they are individuals, but they all follow the same customs. But yeah, just seeing the differences in how they may handle the mourning of a loved one. We can see a little bit of a difference there with Chani and Hera, just a little bit, but mostly, yeah, they have to like death is just is a part of life for them, and they will mourn in the time for it, for them to mourn when there is the proper time for it. Frank is great at allowing each Fremen character to carry an aspect of their culture. Oh, that's such a great way of putting it. Yeah. Because I feel like each Fremen that we've encountered has their own unique identity and personality. And of course, they're united by their culture and their history and their ways and their religion. But yeah, there's still aspects of each of them that we learn more about them as a whole through their perspectives of these different individual Fremen. Shout out Mapes, for example. Liette obviously had a bigger part, but yeah, even shout out Mapes and the Fremen that Thufir Hawat spoke to, seeing his perspective from that. And yeah, Stilgar, Chani, Jameis, all different, but very interesting to see all the what they bring to the table as far as world building. It's just very uh just wonderfully written. All these characters seem so fleshed out, even just these small ones that don't have much to play, like they contribute something significant. I really appreciate that. So yeah, the funeral for Jameis was so interesting. All of the process around it, it was, I guess, the idea of it, because this was something that Thufir's men, when they knew what was going to happen to one of their soldiers that have died and what they do with their dead as far as rendering them down to their water, I mean, just from an outsider's perspective, that could seem grotesque. And again, that's just from the outside, though. So from within, how respectful they are of the person whose water that is now the tribes. It's so sacred to them. And just how everything is so exacting and so respectful and just reverential awe of water. So when Paul didn't want to take Jameis's combat water. So he was owed the water that he lost in combat with Jameis because they fought without still suits. That was the right, or how they did that. So Paul was awarded some of Jameis's water from that and to recover what he had lost. And yeah, I could see why he was a bit put off by that. I mean, he didn't even want to kill him at all. He didn't want to be in that position. And then to accept the water of this person, yeah, that idea must have been, yeah, he was a bit put off by it. But Jessica definitely could see how not accepting it would definitely be a huge mistake there in how they view water. And Shawnee was saying, it's water, but it's water. Yeah, with the way she said it, the tone in her voice. Yeah, Jessica could read what was going on. And Jessica marveled at the way she said water. There was so much meaning in that simple sound of a word. Yeah, and she recalled that survival is the ability to swim in strange water. So very interesting, the axioms they have that are about water, water related. Um, and what is it? Gurney had one too. That if wishes were fishes, we'd all cast nets. There's so many axioms that they have from these people that came from a water planet that come to mind. So yeah, so Jessica said, "You will accept the water." And I liked what Paul said about, or he thought of it, that he didn't accept the water because solely because Jessica had ordered it, but it was the tone that she used. Um, what's that? And I like how they brought out this little tidbit that she had used the same tone once with Leto, his father, telling her lost duke that he would accept a large sum offered for his support in this questionable endeavor because money was power for them, for the Atreides. And on Arrakis, water was money. So that's an interesting tidbit there about their family dynamics. Like Jessica did voice uh, these things. She had an integral part into the political maneuverings within House Atreides. She definitely had that voice, and was her counsel was definitely very important to Leto. So she was definitely part of the family dynamic. She was never treated as anything less because of her status as a concubine. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit there. But yeah, she used the same voice with Paul. You're going to accept the water. This is important. Um, yeah, the tone of voice though that Jessica had used was had forced Paul to reevaluate, and to refuse the water would be to break with accepted Fremen practice. And so yeah, so he accepted the water. And the funeral rite itself was again very interesting. It definitely spoke a lot about the Fremen, their culture. Everything is everything has its order, its way, everything is sacred, their customs, everything that is surrounding their survival basically is important, which includes death and their customs around death. Yeah, so the friends of Jameis approached and gave their sort of eulogies. I was a friend of Jameis, and Stilgar presided over that and gave his uh, accounting of a uh, of an act of Jameis that was very nice, and another one that was, well, he Jameis gave water when it was scarce, and they would take an item from Jameis, from his items. And I think, yeah, Paul got the well, when it was his turn, and initially, yeah, he was very didn't want to participate in the ceremony. He didn't know what to do. It was very much a shock for him. And it's a very tense situation too. They were everyone was around him expecting, waiting expectantly for him to um take part. So he did. I was a friend of Jameis, And he taught me that when you kill, you pay for it. I wish I'd known Jameis better. And he went over to take the balisette that Jameis had, and he shed tears. And again, tears, this profound moment. They were all, once he started to shed tears, everyone was touching his face and just in awe. Usul gives moisture to the dead. And yeah, that stood out to Jessica the most, that nothing on this planet had so forcefully hammered into her the ultimate value of water. Not the water sellers, not the dried skins of the natives, not the still suits or the rules of water discipline. Here there was a substance more precious than all others. It was life itself and entwined all around with symbolism and a ritual. Water. So I love that whole sequence. That was so good. Yes, Dr. Fagan, that yes, their orderly way to distribute the estate was beautiful. Exactly. It was very respectful. And then if you just, I don't know, like from an outsider's perspective, if someone were to have recounted what happens at a funeral, they may think that it's cold and yeah, may find it repulsive in certain ways. But yeah, being in amongst the Fremen, we really feel like we're, as the reader, seeing through Paul and Jessica's perspective as being part of the tribe now and seeing this very intimate look and yeah, completely different perspective and how respectful they are and careful and yes, orderly. Everything was done by arrangement and respect for Jameis too, and yeah, the water was distributed. Yeah, I'm a bit fuzzy on water tokens. Is it just money or prestige? Well, it's definitely money, and it has the same, a very similar value, I guess. So probably an amount of prestige, I would say as well. So with the um water rings. So Chani was the one that took, again, was a significant part of these proceedings as well. So she's clearly the spiritual, um, she's one of the spiritual leaders among her people, and she took a very active role in this part of the ceremony, but also more later. And she's the one that counts to Paul the exact measurements of the water rings and um and I guess they're called water counters. And those were worn. And it was a funny moment between them because Paul asked Chani if she could hold them for him. And apparently that's a courtship ritual. So I would say, yeah, that's a level of not just money, but to display the water rings, I guess, in that way, and that it's actually a part of courtship rituals is probably a part of that too. So it's not just money in that sense either. It's really encompasses every aspect of their life. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question that well, but so they don't spend them. Yeah, I guess they would spend them, but just yeah, it is money. Um, hmm. Trying to think if there's a specific example within this reading that speaks to that. And I'm not sure if there was a specific instance here that speaks about that. Yeah, I guess trade more than spend. That makes more sense. But it hold a similar value, I would say. That's definitely what money would be. There really isn't a money per se as far as that. That would be the only thing that they have. No, no, you're fine. This is what we're talking about. It's all of so yes, talking more about the water. So they go once they're done with this part of the funeral procession, they are then escorted. Everyone is escorted to the sacred pool of water then. and it is described as the cathedral presence of water. 38 million decaliters was in this sacred pool, and they knew to the exact measurement how much was in this pool, and how much, of course, James's contribution was to that. So it's walled off from the little makers. So we already know a bit about their life cycle from the previous reading and the previous chapters. The little makers, that's what they do, is the early stage of the sandworm. They wall off, they go after water, they secrete it down, way down beneath the desert floor, and that's how spice is then created once enough of them gather and enough moisture is added to them. But to prevent them going after water, because that's what they do, they're everywhere. They created these special um, caches to protect the water from them specifically. So they are walled off, and with it, and they know to within a million decaliters how much they'll need to change the face of Arrakis. So now we know the goal of the Fremen, their dream, that no man ever again shall want for water. The deep desert will be for the maker and his spice, but then there'll be these open sources of water, lakes. This is their dream. And Jessica notes that this was a dream for which men would die willingly. People with a goal would be easy to imbue with fervor and fanaticism, wielded like a sword. Yes, there is a part where they talk about being generous with their water during hard times. Yeah, I think that might have been the part with the funeral of Jameis, that Jameis was generous at a time when, yes, water was scarce. There was a person in need. I think that was it. The water in storage is always untouched. Yes. And I love just how they described just being in the presence of this much water, the air itself, the moisture of it. Definitely. I mean, if water is so sacred to them, just being in the presence of this, just every part of it was truly profound um, to them. Let's see. And all this time, Paul again is still um I think we see even more and more of his seemingly hopelessness when he starts to refine his abilities more. He's starting, I think in the previous reading, he was starting to balance his prescience with his other senses so as not to hamper, not to rely too much on his prescience so that it would dampen his other abilities in a bad way when he needed them. And also because his prescience wasn't entirely reliable. There's these huge voids of blackness before him. But ever present is that vision of the future, the wild legions wielding the green and black Atreides banner, a symbol of terror that would become. Wild legions will charge in the name of Muad'Dib. And he continues to say, it must not be. I cannot let it happen. But the way it describes it, he's like, I believe he has this moment within this point in time amongst the cathedral presence of water within this moment. This is definitely one of those moments that he's dreamt about. And he could feel, or wait, let me see. I've seen this place in a dream, he thought. And the thought was both reassuring and frustrating. Somewhere ahead of him on this path, the fanatic hordes cut their gory path across the universe in his name. And he could feel the demanding race consciousness within him, his own terrible purpose. And this is where it just becomes so clear to him that he knew that no small thing could deflect this juggernaut. It was gathering weight and momentum. And it says, if he died this instant, the thing would go on through his mother and his unborn sister. So nothing less than the deaths of everyone in that room gathered there and himself could stop it. So yeah, that must have been a very tough realization to awaken to. You put it best here as Cage of Destiny. Yeah, and I think the previous reading too really started to emphasize that, and this just straight up says it that basically now everyone in connection with Paul ne- has to die, and hopefully that would stop it. But even then, he knows that that wouldn't stop it. That's pretty crazy. And what did he even do before this moment? I mean, Paul and Jessica are just trying to survive and using the safety valves that were put in place and trying to reach out to ones that are survivors on this planet. It was a very desperate situation and they were their only lifeline. Dr. Fakin, thanks for the 5. I'll push back on Paul here. He could have weirded way killed everyone and stopped the jihad at that point. I guess. And then what, killed himself? I don't know. Oh, goodness. It's interesting too, though, because now we're starting to see differences between Paul and Fade Rotha. Those two now, we're seeing the dynamic. Well, they're separate, but we're seeing these different perspectives of someone brought up in the Harkonnen household and the heir of House Atreides and Paul. And Count Fenring even says that I wonder what would have happened with Fade Rotha if he was brought up with the Atreides code of honor and ethics, something like that. But I still think I still think humanity is still on the course of stagnation regardless. So humanity still dies. So we'll see. I think way too many readers accept that the jihad is inevitable. Well, it sounds pretty much like that so far in what this reading establishes. But see, even if the jihad didn't happen, well, I guess this goes further than our reading, so I don't know, maybe I should just stick to the chapters. I might just do that. I might just stick to the chapters, but from Paul's perspective here, what we're given, there really isn't a way, as he said, that nothing, like even if he died or everyone died in that room. Yeah. The goal with the stored water is new to me. It's surprising in a way because it goes against their current deeply ingrained way of life. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, actually. That is a very good point of to really stew on because I think, especially with this reading, we see how much water and survival on this planet, how much that has molded and shaped their society and customs and everything, every aspect of their life. So to then have them change the face of Arrakis, did they think about that? Did they truly think that how that would impact them as a people? Yeah, I wonder. All of this really highlights Kine's tutelage to the Fremen. It's pretty crazy. Yes, and how much they're devoted to it. And can you blame them? I mean, when we through Jessica's eyes, seeing, what was it? Not just a, how'd she put it? Uh, yeah, the unconscious preoccupation with water, but not, but actually not water. Jessica had to correct herself. It was this preoccupation with moisture. Every drop of moisture is so vital to their survival, and it is the reason why they've had to, why they've come to this place as a people. They, as Jessica has their entire history basically laid before her and passed on to her, she sees all that they've gone through, and they are far older people than she suspected. You know, they didn't start off on this planet. They had this huge, long pilgrimage and so many things of that they've had to survive and adapt to before even coming here to Arrakis. Nerd Cookies, all Paul has to do is say he's part Harkonnen and they reject him point blank right there. Well, some might still believe. Some are really, even at this point, after besting Jameis, that was a huge deal. Yeah, Draco. If humanity dies, it dies. Fade is the dark mirror, but it's interesting because how dark could he be? Yeah, I like that we're starting to see glimmers of that. So, Paul and how he is so reluctant to, he didn't want to kill Jameis, and he was reluctant to even accept his water. And, and yeah, I mean, I guess he could have killed everybody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just one of them in the room full of fierce Fremen warriors, but that thought just never occurred to him to wipe them all out. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered at that point. But also with Fade, he was on his 17th birthday celebrating his 100th gladiator, a slave, or killing his 100th slave gladiator. I'll say that 10 times fast. Okay, okay. Oh, I get that Paul believes the inevitable jihad. I just don't think it passes the overall logic of the Duneverse. Yeah. Well, it's definitely something we'll keep in mind as we continue our reading, definitely. Non-map, Paul's survival is destined to incite the jihad, and Paul's death would still incite the jihad. But how would the Fremen leave the planet without Paul? I mean, he did say that all that they needed was the legend of Muad'Dib at that point. If Jessica was still around and uh, her and Aaliyah. What did he say? How do you put it? Let's see. Yes, if he died this instant, the thing would go on through his mother and his unborn sister. And I mean, again, if they control the spice, that's it. That's it for them. Yeah, maybe they don't need to leave the planet, just kill the spice. I mean, they're the ones that know everything about the spice and the sandworm, the connection with that. That's something that's not uh, widely known. I think that's been established so far. So it's interesting. So it continues though, and talking about this, talking about Paul and this vital moment. There, it was interesting that one point Paul felt that a vital moment had passed him. So let me know what y'all think about that. He felt that something vital, he had missed an essential decision and was now caught up in his own myth. He missed something. It's unintentionally. He didn't mean that, but he felt now that he had missed something. He had missed an essential decision. And let's see. He knew he had seen this place before, experienced it in a fragment of a prescient dream far away on Caladan, but the details were now being filled in that he had not seen before. And he was feeling that new sense at the new sense of limits of his gift. And he was feeling as if he was just riding the wave of time. And that sometimes when you're on the crest of the wave, you can see more. And then you have other waves lifting and falling and revealing and then hiding what lie what lay beyond their surface and over there. And so the way it describes his gift as this sort of sea and this turbulent waves, and sometimes, yeah, when the waves come up and crest and fall, and that's how he's seeing through that and only seeing glimpses here and there from those currents. But the jihad is still in the distance ahead of him, the violence and the slaughter. So it was like he was on that high point of land, like a lighthouse or something that sticks out over this large body of water above the surface. That's what the jihad represented. So I just love how that is described, this gift that he had and the idea of prescience, but also the limits of it. And I love how it's described as this like this turbulent sea and these waves, and that you may not see everything all at once. And just these little glimpses as the waves dip down and crest upwards and the tides come in. That's so cool. It's such a cool way to describe something that's so weird and fascinating, and so that we can understand it or kind of grasp it more by these word pictures. So pretty trippy. And it brings out that Paul was sad at this moment. Just this whole experience with the funeral for Jameis, and since then him dealing with his prescience, the limits of it, and the wild jihad just fixed before him. And he's just filled with such sadness. I think there was also another point where Jessica notes the limits of Paul's prescience. Oh, I think that's after the water of life ceremony, where she questions how much he can actually see, because he had asked her if the water was safe to drink for him. Oh boy, is that relatable, missing an important decision. Oh, right? How frustrating is that just for us? And just to think of how that must feel for Paul, the frustration that you missed something that you don't know what you've missed, and you still see this horrible event before you. Did I miss something essential related to that? Yeah, again, he's still has these huge limits and blind spots to his prescience. It's not so linear and fixed. It seems very chaotic at this time. He definitely doesn't have control over it. He can maybe to a degree, but not anything that's really helpful to him at the moment. Name not a channel. There were only two paths Paul saw up until the fight with Jameis, jihad or barren stagnation. He could not take the stagnation path, and Paul did not know the fight with Jameis was the point of no return. Yeah, even at that point, there was still so much that he couldn't see along that path, along the other path, the one that wasn't barren stagnation. He could see there was um, an outcome, or he couldn't see the steps along the way for the other path that was still very much muddy, but yeah, definitely preferred, I guess, the ultimate outcome. So yeah, he didn't know, and from the very early on, he could see the jihad, and that has just been an ever-present event so far through all of this, even though there's been differences. Duncan was with him in one point in his visions. The way he met Chani was not how he dreamt it, and he dreamt of her many times. And stagnation was also death. Yeah, that was not an option, I guess, truly. Yeah, it's not, wasn't great options there. So yeah, and some very exciting things though when we see that the dark mirror now of the Atreides and House Harkonnen and what's been going on there. So yeah, now knowing a bit more of like Paul's personality and what he's going through and how much he continues to wrestle with not wanting to let the jihad happen, and we have the opposite here with how much the Harkonnens celebrate greed, ambition, murder, all of the things that the Atreides, they're exact opposites. And Fate is now celebrating his 100th kill of the slave gladiators in the ring, and just the entire ceremony surrounding that, all of the festivities. You know, that the slaves are always drugged, and you could tell they're always drugged. They're all for show. So there's no sport at all to this. It's very just without honor or anything, and or anything noble in this act. But yeah, so they're celebrating not just his birthday, his 17th birthday. He's also now the Baron's chosen heir officially. He will, the Nay Baron. He's the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen has chosen Fade, his nephew, to succeed him. So huge day of festivities in honor of that he was heir designate. Loud Bob, member for 14 months. Thank you. Good to see you. Just popped in to say hello. Can't stay. It's late here and I need to be up early. Have fun, everyone. Well, I'm so glad you could pop in. Thank you. And yes, the streams will be up if you want to catch up later. They'll remain up to view at your leisure. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for chiming in. I will give Paul his 75% accurate future prediction on deja vu, like images of Chani and the dripping water, but not this inevitable path stuff. Well, we'll see. We'll see as the reading continues. Because I do want to stick to what we know so far with the book. This book. So, yes, I'm going on what we have so far. So we'll continue. We'll continue to see Paul's evolution, and we'll see. We'll see about that. So yes, they have let's see. A lot of details that surround that showcase the Harkonnens, like how they operate. They created this illusion of gaiety, of celebrations. They just splashed paint, this new coat of paint on everything, and everyone has a day of rest from their labors. And so everyone's cleared up the trash to make nice for the Emperor's representatives, which are Count Fenring, as we know, is the Emperor's best friend. And well, ambassador to the smugglers. We know that about him. Yeah, definitely a close relationship with the Emperor himself. Count Fenring and Lady Fenring were stationed on Arrakis temporarily before the Atreides were positioned there in the interim. So yeah, now we've heard of them, but now we get to see both Count and Lady Fenring take part in the grander political intrigue, especially on the part of the Emperor's behalf and the Bene Gesserit's agenda as well. So very interesting stuff. Raider, wow, thank you so much for the 10 Nerd Cookies memberships. Thank you. Wow, thank you so much for your generous support and for the 63.89 super chat. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. That's so generous. And I'm glad you can make it. Glad you can make the book club. Yes, thank you. That's that's crazy. Hold on one sec. So, yeah, so much is going on Getty Prime. I love the political intrigue here. So it's more of the broader aftermath of the schemes against the Atreides that are being more fleshed out. We've mostly just seen it from the Harkonnens' perspective of what went down. So we know that the Sardaukar were there on behalf of the Emperor and what they were doing, but now we have this more broad scale view of what's going on within the Landsraad and the Imperium at large. And the relationships between the Baron and the Emperor are not as tight as you would think, even though they pulled this unjust scheme against the Atreides together. Yeah, Count Fenring is underrated. A badass MF. Yeah, again this how such everyone, even though it astounds me that every character seems so fleshed out, even if they're like taking part as far as if their part in the narrative is small, it's still so significant. I love Frank Herbert's writing style, but still it's not bogged down with so many characters and so much. The way it flows so nicely and organically with these different ensembles of character. Fenring's humming language is a pretty cool. I know. I still picture Jeff Goldblum in my when reading these. Yeah, Fenderings are kind of wild with what little we get of them. I know they so fascinating. Their relationship is so interesting. The Count and Lady Margot Fenring. So we know Margot has already taken part in the narrative prior to now, but now she has entered the stage fully. But we know that she did help Lady Jessica before her actions on Arrakis, since they were stationed there before the Atreides. She made sure to hide a note that Jessica would find and understand to warn them of the traitor and the schemes against them. So it's interesting to see her part now, what she has to do on the part of the Bene Gesserit agenda as well. So we have Count Fenring, a killer with the manners of a rabbit, and Lady Fenring, just this image of perfection, golden haired, willowy, clothed in this flowing gown, simple fitness of form without this extravagant ornament. It was herself that's basically the ornament. Gray green eyes that and her serene repose that Fade Rotha found disturbing. So subtly disturbing. So for that to have an effect on someone like Fade Rotha is interesting. The kind of presence that she evoked, or her strong presence. How about the insane spoiler? Princess Irulan drops in our reading. If Fenring, Paul, if Fenring wanted it that way. Yeah, that's interesting. What is that? Was that at the very end or towards the end? Yeah, I think that was the last chapter, right? Um, well, it's not entirely spoilery. We don't know. Let's see. So it is, let's see. So this is from the chapter heading in our last chapter of the reading of the fifth chapter, chapter 38. The chapter heading for that. Sorry if that makes any sense. Um, talks about Count Fenring's relationship with the emperor, so there's some interesting things there. The measure of Count Fenring's friendship may be seen first in a positive thing. He allayed the Lanzerad's suspicions after the Arrakis affair. It cost more than 1 billion solari in spice bribes, so my mother said. And there were other gifts as well, slave women, royal honors, and tokens of rank. The second major evidence of the Count's friendship was negative. He refused to kill a man even though it was within his capabilities, and my father commanded it. I will relate this presently. So we don't know which man yet. We don't know what that's spoiling just yet. But we do know that he refused to kill a man, so I guess that's spoilery. Jeff Goldblum is a god tier casting NC. Isn't it? It's like I can't hear anyone else in my mind for that. And I think Lady Fenring also speaks like that. She had when she's speaking with the Count, so they have their own language, their own coded language, and she also has some of those mms. Not as much as the Count, but yeah, she had a few of those, I think. So yeah, I love that the Count and Lady have they have a strong relationship, it seems. That they are that they know intimately kind of like what each other is doing with their own separate agendas, but they also are united in the Bene Gesserit agenda as things play out on Getty Prime. So initially, Count has his own interests as well, but we also see even in that little portion that I read, the Count has this seemingly dual allegiance that he also supports the Bene Gesserit agenda, and he supports Margot's actions to conserve the bloodline, the Harkonnen bloodline in Feyd-Rautha. Fenring is prominent in one of the non-canon books set between books 1 and 2, and it is a very strange book. Fenring kills Paul in the book but revives himself. It's bizarre. Yeah, that sounds bizarre. Is that set between books 1 and 2? Which book is that? The Fenrings are honorary Ents? Hold on. Oh, okay. The humming. Yeah. That's good. Ah. Yeah, they have such a fascinating relationship. And again, it's interesting to see another Bene Gesserit lady, and as Jessica brought out, the Count married his lady. So they're actually married in their situation. And yeah, just very, very different to Duke Leto and Lady Jessica, but they still seem very close and supportive of each other. Yeah, very, very strange, but supportive relationship between the two of them. It's very interesting. Very Dune-ish. I'm kidding. So let's see. So the Count takes the Baron aside. A situationship. That's great. Oh, that's great. I love it. So I love the conversation that so the Count gets down to business. They have their niceties, they introduce the Count and Lady come meet the Baron and Feyd makes this he's enamored with the lady, and I will dedicate my kill to you in the ring if you permit it. And she says, "No, I don't permit it." And he goes off, whatever. Um I like how she also brought out that uh in examining Faye, she's like, well, this is definitely someone who's not going to let themselves get fat. I just thought that was funny. Funny thing to bring out. So definitely it does speak though to that Fate is different from his uncle and his brother. the Beast Raban, that there's more of a discipline there, I guess. I would say that his greed and murderous ambition is more, what's the word? Surgical? Is that a good word? He's similar in cunning to the Baron, but they definitely have their differences in their approach to their, I guess, their narcissism and greed. It's just on different shades there. But yeah, so clearly there's the physical differences we see are different in their approaches to life, that uh, Fade will not let himself have, I guess, those greedy pleasures to where it would allow himself to get, so enormously fat that he needs suspensors to get around. So there's some discipline there. There is differences, and we see even their relationship, the differences between these two and within the family. Also, that foundation beginning to crack as well, as they have their own. Fade has his own ambitions that are now starting to stray from his uncles. So even though the Baron is set to make him his heir, Fade is making moves. Maybe it's not happening fast enough. Maybe he doesn't really truly think that the Baron will let him have power. So, yeah, classic Harkonnen character traits, though, in betrayal that defines them. But yes, the Baron and Count Fenring have it out, their private conversation in the cone of silence. And the Count basically just relates that the Emperor is not pleased with how you handled things on Arrakis. You ordered the Sardaukar off Arrakis, and clearly those were the Emperor's eyes and ears. So the Baron was already very frustrated at having them around, because he didn't want to reveal to the Emperor all of the details of how he operated, how he did things. And he questioned him about him keeping Thufir Hawat alive. Questioned him about, I don't think you're handling the Fremen problem well at all. And we see the Baron kind of really, I don't know, he was taken to task pretty well. He did not like being questioned. And the Count, yeah, I love the inner dialogue in this scene. Yeah. Oh, it's so good to see like what they're saying and then not saying. As the reader, we get to see what's going on both of those sides, and what they choose to say and what keep to themselves is um very delicious, I guess. It's very intriguing, very well written, and it's just very interesting to see the Baron in this position. He thinks he's in a place of strength, but clearly, as even evident to the Count, that the price they paid to exact to rid themselves of Duke Leto is quite clear, and their desperation, I guess, in that way is also becoming more evident. And I wonder too if that's why the Baron never got a replacement Twisted Mentat from the Bene Tleilax. He just kept Thufir Hawat, and he's still around. He's still of use. What does the Baron say? What do you say? He's good material. I don't waste good material. Or was that for Fade? Well, I think the principle still stands, but um maybe that's why. Like, he just couldn't afford to get a new Mentat that was at least loyal to him. So he just had to make do with Thufir Hawat. Yes, he's an Atreides Mentat, but still one of the best, if not the best, Mentats in the known universe. And as long as he has that poison over him, I mean, he's has the poison and he's administered the antidote daily or regularly, and if that's withheld, then he would die. So because of that hold that he has on him, he keeps him around. Yeah, Baron likes playing with the Duke's old toys. Yeah, that makes sense. He probably feels the satisfaction of controlling him in that way, which we see him in other ways, controlling others with substances. He did with Piter de Vries and his spice addiction. His guard captain is Nefud is addicted to Samuta, another drug, so he has control of him in that way too. So maybe he has that extra pleasure in that, and maybe too, maybe he just can't afford the extra expense. But I don't know. That probably is more likely the that he just likes the idea of controlling him and that he could kill him at any moment if he wanted. But Thufir's playing like 4D chess here too. um Thufir is playing the Baron and Fade like the moves he's making is very interesting, and especially as we see later in the kind of bookends these chapters. Um, so the whole thing about this event, now that it started, the celebrations have started with Fade's fight. He has the the ceremonial knives. Was it white for poison, black for purity um, is the tradition. And and the entire time that this is going on, we hear Fade's thoughts. And so the plan is for this event, Fade is going to make his move. He's going to make his mark and really let everyone know who Fade really is. And this is him making a big statement in that way of what he wants to say to people. And that was a big deal for him and how these proceedings were going to go with the fight. So clearly, the tradition is that the slave gladiators are drugged heavily. So it's not much of a, again, not sportsmanlike at all. But let's see. Fade and Thufir conspired together to swap out one of the slave. What is it? One of the slaves. I forget how many. Were there two others? Well, swap out the slave that was supposed to be drugged with a non-drugged slave, and that would kind of just have like a painted with makeup to make it seem like it was that he was drugged from appearance wise, but definitely he was not acting like a drugged slave. It was clear that um, by him moving around and was ready to fight, but also like was not in a blind rage, I guess, and was methodical and ready, to fight, poised to fight. And that was the idea between Fade and Thufir, that this was to be a grave mistake made on the part of the slave master, and that uh, to resolve this, if Fade were to have, you know, won the day, the slave master would be blamed for this oversight of him not being drugged, and he would be executed and allow for Fade's slave master or another slave master that was loyal to Fade would then replace him. So that's the ultimate goal on their part. Um, but unbeknownst to both Thufir and Fade, they each have their own secrets going on too. So Thufir arranged for an Atreides soldier, not your ordinary, not your ordinary slave gladiator, one that was trained, part of the Atreides army, which rivaled, which was approaching to rival the Emperor's own Sardaukar, even with such a, in comparison, such a small force to them. Yeah, so that was a surprise. He comes out, and there he wrote in blood the symbol of the Atreides on his person, I think on his arm. So that's how Fade found that out. But Fade had his own tricks too. He had swapped the poisons. His black blade held the poison. So, and yeah, no one but Fade knew that. So everyone's got their everyone's got their secrets and their feints within feints, plans within plans. Fade's poison blade thing was an interesting detail. A smarter person might find some symbolism in there, but I just thought it was cool. Well, yeah, the way that Fade, the way his mind worked in this whole thing. So we didn't get to see Thufir's perspective in this. We just knew from Fade's perspective that this is what he had planned with Thufir. So we know that he's self-serving and ambitious in this way. He's taking an enormous risk to his person, Fade is in this, but trying his best to make sure that he still wins the day, but and also will use whatever means is necessary to get that upper hand. So he switches the knives and what he said, or the poisoned, and which hand held the poison, and what he says to himself is so interesting. Well, there's also another thing. An advantage. Fate has so many advantages. It's crazy. Even though it's an Atreides soldier, it, it's nuts how many advantages he has. So the Atreides soldier, he has. I think Fate has a shield, and the Atreides soldier has half a shield, or just a very small portion in comparison. And Fate's knives are switched with the poison. And there's also a key word was implanted in the gladiator. The word scum would immobilize his muscles at a critical instant. So, I mean, he couldn't just do it at any point. It had to be the right moment. So, but still, it's like you don't have enough um, advantages. The gladiator wrapping the barbs in cloth and using them as armor was a jump out of my seat moment. Yeah, that was cool. That was something that Fade did not expect. And of course, he had to use the word. He was about to perish. It was at a very critical moment. And even though with all his advantages, he, he had to use the implanted keyword, and uh, the Atreides soldiers, his muscles were immobilized, and that allowed him to get the upper hand and used his poison knife. And Fade thinks, when I'm barren, they'll remember this day, and won't be a one of them can escape fear of me because of this day. So that was really a huge part for Fade. And thank you so much, Dr. Fagan, for the 5. I don't know if I said that. Thank you for your support. Yeah, so Fade was boasting about himself, like they'll remember me. Like it's so important for him to make a name for himself at this event. And what does he also say? Yeah, as let them think on the slave who tried to turn the knife he thought poisoned and use it against me. Let them wonder how a gladiator could come into this arena ready for such an attempt, and let them always be aware they cannot know for sure which of my hands carries the poison. So he was proud of that. He was proud of the outcome of this, and it was all about himself and making that statement to everyone present, to the people, and to everyone present, and celebrating him being the heir. And it succeeded in impressing the Bene Gesserit, Lady Fenring, and the Count even says, I can see now why we must have that bloodline. I knew those barbs would be armor. Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. That's pretty metal. I really liked how we got the details of the fight. And with Paul, we get his adaptation to fighting someone without a shield and having to correct it. Yeah, that's a good point too, because we just had that experience with Paul and Jameis, how different that was in comparison to this. Again, that dark mirror that Fade represents, which is even said by the Count Fenring. Let's see, what did he say exactly? Did I have that? Oh, I thought I made a note of that. I can't remember. Anyways, but yeah, so with Paul and Jameis, they fought without still suits. They were, yeah, there was no shields, no nothing, just them, stripped down to their skivvies and their undies. I don't know, and their crysknives, and that was it. And they both, uh, Johnny, yeah, gave Paul her crysknife, so it was again, no, nothing tampering that event. And it was a treated as a sacred event, or it's so much a part of their ritual or their people to challenge ones like these. It contributes to the strength of the tribe, ultimately. You can see why the emperor was afraid of Duke Leto. Oh, definitely. Yeah, that was a good uh, point there that it brings out. I mean, we already knew, and I think that was mentioned in, yeah, Baron and Count Fenring's conversation. The Baron kind of teased making Arrakis a prison planet, so he was kind of also coming around or questioning Seleucus Secundus and what that truly is, and kind of, tiptoeing around that. And the count did not like that, did not like him speaking about or making such comparisons with the Fremen, that would be a possible thing, to make Arrakis a prison planet and what that could possibly do for its people. But yeah, it was definitely, we're starting to see evidence of why the Emperor was so threatened by Duke Leto. So that was, yeah, definitely some interesting tidbits there. And the Baron just outright threatens the Count with, you know, I know what happened. I can implicate the Emperor in this, and I don't think the great houses would be happy to learn about the Emperor's involvement in these things. But yeah, the Count just kind of laughs it off that they could just easily say or bring up Sardaukar to come up and admit that they acted on their own volition to say that they just wanted to go fight Fremen, and and that the Emperor had nothing to do with it. So they planned for that. What's the point of that? But yeah, yeah, sorry, I think I was talking about before that though, the differences between Fade and Paul are now we're seeing more of that unfold, and that stark difference. And Fade has been, again, a very small player up until this point in the narrative. We saw him from the beginning, and now we actually see him taking that larger role. He was just this observer in the very beginning, listening to Piter and his uncle talk about the schemes that they had planned. And now he's taking on this larger role himself and making plans against his own uncle, and because he has his own ambitions. And yeah, just how much he differs from Paul in the way they fight, the what they represent of both of their houses is very stark, very very different in how they handled their duels to the death in every aspect of it. And then their individual feelings of that. Paul didn't, he shed tears for the dead and honored him in his funeral. And meanwhile, Fade has all of these all of these advantages. And he's just so proud of himself that he did it without the slave being drugged this time. Like, good for you, but you also had this key word implanted. You had this secret, you swapped the poisons for the blades. So, yeah. Yeah, Paul and Fade are related after all. Yeah, and but with w it's interesting though too because we have those comparisons of their combatants. So Paul went up against a Fremen, a full Fremen fierce warrior, and Fade is going up against an Atreides soldier. And how even then, amidst all of his numerous advantages, he was all he was close to death at one point, and he had to use that secret implanted word to immobilize his opponent. Fate is Paul without all of Paul's advantages, but especially the absence of mentors. Yeah, and well, what did he have to learn from but his uncle and the twisted mentat, Pyre de Vries, that who operates without ethics or morality. So that is a product of them, and that is something that Count Fenring and Lady Margot were talking about, that they saw the potential in Fade's bloodline, that there was definitely something worthy of preserving after all of this went down. Oh yeah, there was something that he thought was noble that Fade did, was that he didn't go and cut off his head at the end after he dispatched of the Atreides warrior. And they're like, "Oh, he's so he's actually noble. He didn't do that." It's like, okay. But that's they were celebrating that was a point in his favor. Um that was some point of honor for him, I guess, in not doing that. But yeah, I just thought that's so interesting to see what Count and Lady, their conversation, Count and Lady Fenring were talking about, that they both support the Bene Gesserit agenda. We see he's the one that said, I can see why we must have that bloodline. And Lady Margot said, when it's obvious we must have a hold on him, which is funny considering what happened with his opponent. Lady Margot is also going to implant, apparently, this hypno-legation is what was called, that she was going to implant in Fade Rotha's psyche, as well as obtain his or secure his bloodline by um, conceiving with Fade. His child in my womb, hypnolegation of Fade Rotha's psyche. Then we go. How she said that. Um, but yeah, but also the count was, he said that, what did he say? There are some ancient prejudices, the things we do in the name of humanity. And, unfortunately, I have some ancient prejudices that I have to overcome. They're quite primordial. So, of course, he's not jazzed about what she has to do, but they both know why. Like, again, this is what we do in the name of humanity. And she's the one that kind of comforts him and says, my poor dear, this is the only way to be sure of saving that bloodline. And he said, I quite understand what we do. Fenring makes that commentary about Fade, what Fade could have been if people in his life loved him. Yeah, where is that? Uh, I thought I had that written down, or not written down, but what does he say? Sorry. Um, yeah, Count Fenring is not down with the cuck chair. Oh, I thought I said it. Yeah. What could have been done with Fade with that with the Atreides training, something like that. And also he talks about would that we could have saved both the Atreides youth and this one. From what I've heard, that young Paul is a most admirable lad, a good union of breeding and training. And Lady Fenring caps off this encounter. There's a Bene Gesserit saying, "Do not count a human dead until you've seen his body, and even then you can make a mistake." This also has some prescience in that. Well, we haven't seen their body. We haven't seen his bodies, and even then, non Matt, thank you so much for the 5 Nerd Cookies memberships. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. What is that? Try to find it. I thought that I'd written this down. Okay. Here it is. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. So Count Fenry says, let's see. So Lady Fenring starts out by saying about Fade that he's pretty fierce, but the nephew, or the Baron, yeah, he's pretty fierce, but the nephew could well grow to be worse. Thanks to that uncle, Count says. You know, when you think what this lad could have been with some other upbringing, with the Atreides code to guide him, for example. It's sad, Margot said. So that's what it was. The Atreides code. Yeah. I mean, great emphasis is placed in this universe upon training, breeding, conditioning. So who knows? I mean, there's definitely a case for it to see the differences between these two individuals with Paul and Fade. Okay. So, yeah, we haven't talked much though about God, there's so much. There's so much in this reading. But yeah, the Water of Life ceremony also happened. That was a huge deal. Man, what a trippy portion of this reading. And let's see. Yeah, Jessica enters the Spice Agony ritual. So Jessica still has to prove herself. So Stilgar has already pointed out that she can become the Sayadina. I mean, she was basically treated as a Sayadina, which was apparently a lower priestess among their people, that she could serve as that because of uh, the prophecy, the legend surrounding the Lizan al Gaib, and they knew what it said in the Mahdi that the son of a Reverend Mother would come and lead them to paradise. So, and that's was the whole thing that Jameis was testing was her part in that legend. So there's still, even though she still proved to a degree about their, reciting their cants, their prayers, and that was enough, I get at that point, but still she was going to have to become that reverend mother among their people. Their reverend mother is actually was dying. So at this point, actually, there's like this bustle of activity when Paul and Jessica actually enter Sietch Tabr, which is where Stilgar's tribe, where they live. So they finally made it to that point, and a lot of stuff is happening. They just received news, or Chani did, that her father, Liet Kynes, and that was a big revelation. that that's who was Chani's father. Well, she said that daughter of Liet, but now when she was introduced first, I'm Chani, daughter of Liet. But now she just received news of her father's death, so that's a big point of turmoil for her that she's wrestling with. This point of connection now that Paul and Chani share, having the just suffered the loss of their fathers. And also, they are getting ready to move. So Paul is getting settled in, but they're all getting ready to sort of pick up and leave because of what's happened on Arrakis with the Harkonnens and everything. It's just getting more dangerous. So they have to leave to go south to a more secure place. But their Reverend Mother wouldn't make the trip, so they have to and Jessica does accept that role of trying to become their next Reverend Mother. And to do so, she has to undergo this water of life ritual. Okay. Yeah, so Stilgar begins, or wait, no. So Stilgar and Chani are very much a part of this ceremony, and later on, after this huge bustle of activity, Paul gets settled in with Hera, and Hera is Jameis's wife, and they're kind of talking about their arrangements. So Paul is now responsible for Jameis's sons, but also he can decide whether or not Hera will be of a servant to him or as a wife, and he doesn't want her as a wife. So but that's their arrangement, and it's I mean, it's a understandable arrangement for how a society like this lives, a society based on the strength of the tribe, and I mean, Hera herself. I mean, Jameis bested her first husband uh, for Hera. So her sons are actually, one of them is Jameis's and one of them is Hera's from her previous union. But Jameis treated them the same, and now Paul is now responsible for that. So Hera was getting everything she was kind of schooling him, I guess, on just the day-to-day activities of the Fremen, and yeah, very interesting. So all that's happening while Jessica's getting ready for the ceremony. So Stilgar says that the Reverend Mother would not survive the trip south. So we have lived before without a Reverend Mother. That I thought was interesting. But it's not good for people to seek a new home in such straits. So he said Jessica of the Weirding has consented to enter the rite, and that we may not lose all if Jessica of the Weirding should fail. Chani, daughter of Liet, will be consecrated in the Sayadina at this time. So it's basically her second. If Yeah, and if she should fail, that means if Jessica would die. So without a Bene Gesserit to transmutate poison, did the Fremen just take random women and hope they didn't die? Well, there is definitely a significant link for with the Bene Gesserit and the Fremen Reverend Mothers. So already Jessica has been astounded at at the original Bene Gesserit, I guess, responsible for implanting these myths and legends because the Fremen are so deeply ingrained with some of their customs already. Their religious leaders are women, and they are called Reverend Mothers even. And they test themselves too with the Gom Jabbar, which I'm sure is different than the way the Bene Gesserit have done it. But the fact that that's even something at work in their people. And what is the Fremen but their continued fight for survival and how that proves their humanity. And the entire test of the pain box is to override those natural human instincts and prove your humanity. And that's probably just an everyday life or an everyday occurrence for the life of a Fremen to prove their humanity by surviving to the next day. Um, so, well, let's get into more of the specifics of what's happening. Um, so the Reverend Mother comes up and she looks as though she's this old crone, looks as though she's about to blow away or that a breeze would blow her away. But she noted that she carried the same aura as the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayim. So there's that, even that presence is very similar between these two. So I would say that um, the way that it's so the Bene Gesserit uh, ways, I guess, the way they've been incorporated so much. I mean, well, from what we know so far in this book, clearly there's things that are very deeply connected between some of the ways of the or the Bene Gesserit and the Reverend Mothers. So I think it's probably similar that, as Jessica stated, not everyone, I mean, the ceremony is different. The Then a little bit of how, but even Jessica noted that she's not really aware of all of the specifics of the way their order does this ceremony of the water of life and transmuting the poison. But she just knows that it's somewhat different. And and what do they do once it works? They pass on this knowledge. So clearly there's some very deep similarities, but also just these wild, um, I guess, ways that they've fractured and just their own ways as this culture, the Fremen culture, has developed. So yeah, I think there's a similar way that Jessica notes that not every Bene Gesserit has survived this process to become a Reverend Mother. I would say the same is true about this process for a wild Fremen Reverend Mother. So if they are unable to move these particles around, it would make it would make sense that some of them would have died. And as the tribe, as Stilgar even said, they've been without a Reverend Mother before. So, but they also have this plan in place if it were to occur that if Jessica were to have failed, they have the second who would be trained and in the Sayadina. So very interesting. And as Jessica's going through this, so when the water of life is brought to her, she smells spice. It's a very and Shawnee is the one that brings this. She's a very active participant in this ceremony. And even though she's grieving, she's wearing the green scarf, a sign of mourning for her father during all this. So once I think she took like several big swallows of the water, and yeah, she could tell right uh, as it got close to her mouth that yeah, this is a poison. What is it? And already she could smell the spice of it. So it is, and she felt that as the memories were coming forth or given to her by the Reverend Mother, that this was from the liquid exhalation of a dying sandworm that had drowned, and she saw all of that. So that all of this stuff was uh, being presented to her and being given to her. And this was, I think that was after. So first she has to change the poison. And this is all taking place within her mind, and time has stopped, and it stopped because so she can survive. That time is suspended to save her life, and she's basically just rendered down to this mote, just this conscious mote, smaller than any subatomic particle. Yet she's capable of motion. She can sense her surroundings. So that's this whole thing is described. It's so trippy. She can, let's see, she focused on the psychokinesthetic extension of herself, looking within, and was confronted immediately with a cellular core. And that was the place, the pit of blackness was the place where we cannot look, she thought. That is the place that the Reverend Mothers are so reluctant to even mention, the place where only the Kwisatz Haderach may look. So in this process, she saw that. And this is something that was very early on that we knew about in the beginning of this book. The Reverend Mother said, yeah, we can go back and we can see our past memories, our female ancestral memories. However, there is that place that we can't look, which is our male paths, those memories. But the Kwisatz Haderach will see both. And now we get to see what that is in, as far as Jessica's experience, that pit of blackness that they're repelled by. And then she starts to look at the particles that are like dancing around her. She recognizes these familiar structures, atomic linkages, and all of this she sees, this chain of molecules confronted her, and she recognizes proteins, a methyl protein configuration, and she recognized the nature of the poison. And she moved into it, moved into those molecules and moved things around, basically shifted an oxygen um, that allowed another carbon mote to link. So reattached a linkage of oxygen, hydrogen, and that was the catalyst that spread, the change within her spread and changed the poison to render it non-lethal. But that's just the first part. That's just the first part, the shock of all that she had to. Jessica has 100% partied before. She was articulate as heck during this basically liquid Gamja bar test. Oh yeah, like this is nothing. The Gamja bar test is nothing compared to this. But that's what all of those things, all of the training and conditioning that they do is for this moment. And all of the training that they've done to control every fiber and nerve of their being, and all that we've seen so far of Jessica and what a Bene Gesserit is capable of, we now see that the ultimate application of that for them is have to be able to have the ability to ingest a poison and change it within yourself. Is, I mean, that's just bringing control of your being to a whole other level, and that's what raises them to the status of a Reverend Mother. Yeah, can we just take a moment and appreciate how ridiculously cool Jessica is? Exactly. This whole sequence is so awesome. And again, like she's a really such an important character in this book. I'd say she's so far as important as Paul is so far in the narrative. I mean, she's with him this entire time, and we're introduced to her right away, and it feels like, yeah, their stories, Paul and Jessica's, are deeply connected. And Jessica was whose actions have really started this whole thing. It was her act of disobedience that has led to this moment. She had a son, and that changed everything for the Bene Gesserit. But she is still a product of their training, and she was definitely what we've seen so far. She has adapted to the ways of the Fremen. She has used so many avenues and her training as far as political intrigue goes and covert operations, going against or head to head with Thufir Hawat and their ways of logic um, and then yeah, having to adapt in the wake of this tragic event with the loss of her Duke and adapting to life on Arrakis. I'd say she's handled things quite well and utilizing the safety measures put in place. But yes, this is the ultimate test of the Bene Gesserit. Let's see. So once she changed the poison, she could feel Chani taking, I guess, a drop of moisture from her mouth, from her lip, and using that to change the poison in the sack. And so after that was done, she changed the poison, and it also changed the rest of the water that was there. Reverend Mother Ramallo was brought to Jessica then, and um, her hand touched Jessica's neck. They reached out to her, so they had that physical connection there. And then her awareness joined Jessica's, and within her mind's eye, she then saw Ramallo, and they shared that mutual awareness. And in her mind's eye, Ramallo was this young girl with a dancing spirit and tender humor. You'll have it all soon, Jessica, which is her memories that she's experienced. But then, you should have told us you were pregnant. This changes both of you. Yeah, I like how the Reverend Mother was like, "What are you doing with that baby?" Immediately. Holy Mother, what have we done? She did think about, she did think about her unborn daughter. And do I have the right to risk us both? I mean, what a position to find yourself in. And basically having to choose between Paul and her unborn daughter. Um, yeah. I mean, she didn't exactly know what was going to happen, but she knew the risk was there, or that it could have been. Who knows what it, yeah, but yeah. She was in her thoughts. It's a very horrible situation that they had to be in, but yeah, now that uh yeah, this changes both of you. So now Jessica sensed another presence with her inward eye. And the way this is described, I love this portion. It's so tragic and it's so, I mean, it's so crazy what's happening right now. Jessica can see her unborn daughter. She's a mote presence, and she is just darting about wildly. She is radiating pure terror. Ramallo said, "You'll have to be strong. Be thankful it's a daughter you carry because this would have killed a male fetus." So at least there's that. But yes, she said, "Carefully touch your daughter presence, be your daughter presence, absorb her fear, soothe her, use your courage and your strength." And Jessica felt her daughter's terror, and it threatened to overwhelm her. And she started to do the litany against fear, recite that within her mind. But she said words won't work. So she had to reduce herself to such base emotions and just radiated pure love and comfort and that warm protection. And the terror receded. So, time compels me, the Reverend Mother said. "I have much to give you, and I do not know if your daughter can accept all this while remaining sane. but it must be. The needs of the tribe are paramount. I've been a long time waiting for you. Here is my life. I mean, it's so crazy what's happening. I like how they keep Jessica human in the book. She still is a grieving widow, a concerned mother, and a scheming operator without diminishing her at all. Great character writing. Oh, that's such a great way to put it. Yes. Such fantastic complexity and still relatability. Another example of how much Frank Herbert centered women and female experience. Yeah, it's so far I've been I love the character of Lady Jessica. She's so deep and has can do such amazing things and is in such a strange universe and being trained in the Bene Gesserit way, but also not your typical Bene Gesserit, being one who disobeyed them. But yeah, very tough situation she's finding herself in. These incredible choices that she has to make and that she'll have to live with. We'll see. Paul Hurst, hey Elaine, I wonder what personal experiences inspired Herbert to write this part. Very awful. Yeah, I know that he had a very close relationship with his wife, and they were had a very that he let Beverly. Um, so I know that he and I think I can't remember, but I think that uh some of Lady Jessica is inspired by his wife. But yeah, there's definitely some deep uh things in here that I think speak to a person's depth of life experience, and that way that these characters, even minor ones, feel fleshed out, but these ones specifically that can do such extraordinary things in such a strange, fantastic world, you'd think that how could we possibly relate to a character like this and these choices that she has to make and what she's going through in such a trippy moment in this experience, having to change a poison and being gifted this Reverend Mother, this Fremen Reverend Mother's knowledge, like this whole trippy experience is happening within her mind's eye. And yet we can still relate so much as far as the base character traits of her being a mother and being in this impossible place of having to choose which child to protect at which point, and which hopefully will do her best for both of her children. But yeah, sometimes these difficult choices are made and are going to have to be lived with. And that's just how life can go. So, yes, a character that can do such extraordinary things, but still we find them incredibly, their actions, resonate so deeply with us on that very human level and on the level of a mother in this sense too. Yeah, that always stands out to me as what's going on with her and Delia in this moment. It's so tragic, and what's going to happen to her, we don't know. Hopefully she'll remain sane, is what the Reverend Mother Romalo said. So I don't think this has ever I wonder if this has ever happened before, because she definitely would have known, because in this moment she said, here is my life. She is giving Jessica the entirety of all of the prior female or Fremen Reverend mothers before her. So this is what's being gifted to Jessica in this moment. Or I say gift, it's also a responsibility. This represents the needs of the tribe. This is their history. The entire history of the Fremen is now being given, or and from the perspective of the Reverend Mothers, is now being given to Jessica. So it's quite overwhelming in this moment. But this is also something, again, that is part of the Bene Gesserit um, ways of doing things. Because as we already established, or they already established, this is similar process to how they become Reverend Mothers and how they unlock those female ancestral memories. And that's what Jessica said, that I know that now I am a Reverend Mother. This isn't exactly how they did it at the Bene Gesserit school, but actually she said that no one had ever really introduced to her the mysteries of it. But regardless, she just knew the end result is the same. Yeah, and I love how later she said, in talking about her daughter, that a terrible sense of loneliness crept through Jessica and the realization of what had happened, not just to her, but to her daughter. And that sense of guilt of what she had allowed to happen to the mote presence. My poor, unformed, dear little daughter, I brought you into this universe and exposed your awareness to all its varieties without any defenses. But there was this tiny outflowing of love and comfort, like a reflection of what she had poured into it, that came from the other moat. Oh, just so much is happening. So many emotions. Yeah, so during that whole process, she saw the Fremen, their entire pilgrimage, that the Fremen were actually from a planet, Poritan, a people that had grown soft with an easy planet that was apparently fair game for Imperial raiders to harvest, and they had planted them on human colonies, Bella Tegus, I don't know if I'm saying that one right, but also Seleucia Secundus. So actually, there's that connection between the Sardaukar and the Fremen. And Jessica is seeing this entire pilgrimage throughout time. She saw the thread of the past carried by Sayadina after Sayadina. Now, first, by word, I guess an oral history that they carried with each other, but then was refined by their own Reverend Mothers, with the discovery of the poison drug on Rossack. So that there was another connection there, and now developed to subtle strength on Arrakis and the discovery of the water of life, the liquid exhalation of a dying sandworm, a maker. And there it is. Yeah, pretty heady stuff was happening. So once she changed the water, Paul actually asked his mother if it was okay to drink the water, and that's what occurred to Jessica at that moment, to wonder about the limits of Paul's prescience. So his question was very revealing to her about the limits of that. So she said, "Yes, you can drink it now." And Stilgar said, "Now we know you cannot be false." So their position is entirely now cemented deep within the Fremen culture and within Stilgar's tribe. So I guess God, there's so much, but I did want to kind of cap off this reading. So afterwards, they have this, the ceremony ends, but the purpose of it and changing the water in the sacks, there were several sacks, and once she changes the water, then that's distributed, and the catalyst then changes the rest of the water. So it's spice essence, essentially, which comes from the sandworm that we know, and that's rendered non-lethal. So the effect of it is that they have that, um, what the spice does, but to a limited degree with the Fremen, they have that sort of uh, prescience about them. They can know each other and see their futures to a degree, and it's definitely more of like uh, a celebration. It's called the Spice Orgy. Um, from what we know from in culture so far, there's no, not no women taken against their will. I think Stilgar had already said that, and we see the family dynamics that have been established already. Um, but it definitely seems that this is just a giant rave, and because they don't. What did Romalo say? She's like, let them have their spice orgy. They don't have any opportunities for, to let loose or to have a good time, basically. So this is all they have for fun. So let them have fun. That's kind of what it the ritual is. Um, but we see how Chani reacts in this situation as well. And once Paul drinks the water, again, that's another thing that adds to the potency, I guess, of what the spice has been gradually, and the amounts of it that he's been experiencing in ever increasing amounts has had that effect, an increasing and dramatic effect on his prescience and abilities. So obviously, drinking this concoction is brought to another level. Andrew Cram, member for 18 months. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for covering the Dune chapters, Elaine. Well, thank you so much for your support and for the Wonder Cookies membership. Thank you. I'm glad that y'all are enjoying it. This is so much fun to talk about, but yeah, these chapters are so deep. But I love what happens here, and I guess to kind of cap that off, um, Paul and Chani have this very tender moment. They're both feeling I guess this very dramatic events are happening to them. I mean, Chani is still processing her father's death. That's weighing heavily on her, and she's still doing her duties as a Sayadina. Um, but yeah, she now sees the this mutual awareness, I guess, is what I is more apt description of what's happening now. Their awareness is heightened, and it allows them to have fun and everything. But they share. Chani is the one that sees some of what Paul sees of their future. So there's that again, that mutual awareness there. It's a very tender, romantic moment, and the Fremen party is super important to Paul and Chani. They live a lifetime together, and one night, Chani sees what Paul sees, including the future. Yeah, it's such a wild experience here, and it's so they're they had this initial connection as a as Paul and Jessica became members of their tribe, but now it's just become something deeper. Definitely, they both now are sharing in the mutual grief of losing their father. That's something that connects them. And they now have that opportunity to kind of have that time to process everything. And I guess in this way where they can have some enjoyment in this life. I mean, it's their way of life is just so I mean, to say it's difficult, it's their life hangs on a thread, just everything is so exact, and the slightest mistake can wipe out an entire tribe. So there's a lot weighing on their mind as a people in their survival. So, but yeah, they both now have this awareness that's shared between them, and they can see the raging storm ahead of them as well. And this is the quiet moment, like the eye of the storm, basically, for them. How does it? So Paul sees on one side, or no, how's it described? He feels as though he's on a tight wire, a tightrope that he has to walk, or a teeter-totter on which he balanced, and he could see on one side the Imperium, a Harkonnen called Phaedratha, who flashed toward him like a deadly blade, the Sardaukar raging off their planet to spread pogrom on Arrakis, and the Guild conniving and plotting the Bene Gesserit with their scheme of selective breeding. They all massed together like a thunderhead on his horizon. held back by no more than the Fremen and their Muad'Dib, the sleeping giant Fremen poised for their wild crusade across the universe. And at the center, Paul felt himself, at the pivot where the whole structure turned, walking a thin wire of peace with a measure of happiness and Chani at his side. He could see it stretching ahead of him, a time of relative quiet in a hidden siege, a moment of peace between periods of violence. There's no other place for peace. You're the strong one, Chani. Stay with me. Always, she said, and kissed his cheek. Ah, so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Well, that was in the last chapter. The last chapter, we actually saw the outcome of the plans for the gladiator fight with Fade, and all that went down. So the actual assassination attempt went through. The slave master made sure that there was a slave that the Baron would want, and that would have that poison needle implanted on him. So it failed, and they had their hashing out of things. So that kind of bookended the gladiator sequence, and that I thought quite nicely. Also, a period of time went by, I think a couple of years. So that was a long time coming for that plan to bear fruit with that, with the Getty Prime sequence. So it took a while for that to happen, actually, for the trap to spring. And ultimately it failed, and the Baron and Fade had their hashing out of that. And again, just agreed to, hey, we need each other, and with me at your side, I can give you what you want. You will be Emperor, and I will be at your side behind the scenes. And that's it. Yeah, so, and that's what they both want. They both want power, and, and so, and Thufir also was playing the Baron, or playing Fate in that too, because he warned the Baron about it, and that's the whole reason why he survived. So Thufir's playing multiple. He's definitely playing them against each other, probably just to bide his time among them and do as much chaos as he can without revealing what he's doing. So, yeah. So plans within plans continues. But yeah, that's so much happened in this reading. I hope, and I barely scratched the surface, I know. We're almost done though. That's so crazy. We actually only have 2 more sessions. There's only 10 more chapters left. So yeah, 2 more sessions of the book club. So let's see. So thank you all so much for joining me. This has been such a great time getting to nerd out about all of these details and then this fascinating universe. So thank you all for joining me for this another book club discussion. And yeah, thank you to everyone for contributing and for your sharing your thoughts as well. And if you're watching this stream later, be sure to let me know in the comments what you thought and what stood out to you in this reading. And that this stream will be kept up to enjoy later, if you'd like, if you're catching up later. And shout out to all the YouTube and Patreon members. Thank you so much for your support. And again, it's so much fun chatting with all of you about Dune. So the next stream is September 10th, I believe. September 10th, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that will be chapters 39 through 43. We are really moving through it. But this has been so much fun. And definitely you can tell like Frank Herbert's writing style so far, like this what's he called? The coital rhythm of storytelling here. So yeah, there's a lot happening now. So but yeah, so if you haven't been able to get, or if you'd like to or would like to get a bookmark to commemorate the book club, where is it? Can I add this? Well, let me add it. Hold on. Why is it not me add it? There it goes. Okay. So I have an Etsy store and all of these things I handmade myself, and I made book marks especially for the book club. So if you haven't been able to snag one just yet, there's still some left before the book club ends. If you'd like to get one of those, so it's the Etsy store is ncstitchery.etsy.com. So if you'd like to check that out, and there's also some fun little sandworm bags as well if you want to check out those other things and some other nerdy inspired things. But yeah, thank you all again so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone, and as always, have a very nerdy day.